You speak of good. You scream about evil. You argue online. You judge strangers. You cancel people. You worship heroes. But tell me, who decided what is good and who benefits from calling something evil? Pause. Think carefully. When a wolf kills a deer, is it evil? When a king executes a rebel, is it justice? When a businessman destroys his competitor, is it cruelty? Or is it simply interest? The world does not run on morality. It runs on advantage. Morality is a story told by the powerful to control the emotional. History is not written by good people. It is written by winners. Look at the so-called heroes in history. Napoleon Bonaparte, hero to France, tyrant to Europe. Julius Caesar, reformer to Rome, destroyer of the Republic. Genghis Khan, unifier of tribes, nightmare of civilizations. Were they good? Were they evil? No. They pursued their interests, and the world adjusted its morality around them. You think morality is objective. If that were true, it would not change across cultures. In one land, loyalty to family above all is sacred. In another, loyalty to law is supreme. In one era, conquest is glory. In another, conquest is crime. Morality shifts. Interest remains constant. Even kindness is rarely pure. When someone helps you, ask yourself why. To feel superior, to gain reputation, to secure loyalty, to avoid guilt. Humans rarely act without interest. Even sacrifice carries hidden profit. A mother sacrifices for her child. Why? Because her genes continue. Because her emotional reward is tied to the child's survival. Because love itself is wired for continuation. Interest is not always selfish in the shallow sense, but it is always there. You hate this idea because it strips away comfort. If there is no good or evil, then no one is coming to save you. There are no righteous guardians of the world. There are only players, and every player calculates. Politics, interest. Religion, interest. War, interest. Even peace is negotiated interest. Look at the global stage. Nations don't act out of compassion. They act out of stability, security, resources, leverage. When they speak of human rights, ask what trade agreement is behind it. When they speak of freedom, ask what influence they seek. You were raised to believe morality is the highest virtue, but morality is a tool used to align masses, a narrative to synchronize behavior. Without it, society collapses. So morality is useful, but usefulness does not equal truth. Truth is simpler. Power defines good. Loss defines evil. If you win, your story becomes justice. If you lose, your story becomes crime. That is the cruel symmetry of existence. Now let's go deeper. On a personal level, you say betrayal is evil. But if betrayal saves someone's life, if betrayal prevents greater harm, if betrayal secures survival, suddenly the word evil becomes flexible. You see, morality bends under pressure. Interest is rigid. Survival, growth, dominance, security, reputation, pleasure, legacy. These are constants. You judge others harshly, but forgive yourself easily. Why? Because your mind protects your interest. When you lie, it's necessary. When others lie, it's disgusting. When you fight, it's self-defense. When others fight, it's aggression. The ego rewrites morality to preserve advantage. You are not moral. You are strategic, just unaware of it. And awareness is what separates prey from predator. The masses cling to moral identity. I am a good person. Why do they need that label? Because it gives social protection. Because it earns trust. Because it reduces resistance. Because it signals safety. Again, interest. The truly dangerous individuals. They understand morality, but they are not bound by it. They use it. They weaponize it. They appear virtuous when needed. They appear ruthless when necessary. Flexible, adaptable, cold. They do not ask, Is this good? They ask. Does this serve my objective? This mindset terrifies people because it removes emotional control. But let me clarify something. Understanding that there is no inherent good or evil does not mean becoming chaotic. It means becoming conscious. You can choose cooperation because it benefits long-term stability. You can choose loyalty because it builds power networks. You can choose restraint because consequences exist. But you do not choose blindly. You choose strategically. Morality becomes a tool in your arsenal, not a cage around your neck. Look at your own life. How many times have you suffered? Because you tried to be good, you tolerated disrespect, you avoided confrontation, you suppressed ambition, you gave without calculation. And what happened? The world did not reward you for purity. It rewarded those who understood leverage. You call that unfair. But the universe never promised fairness. Nature does not care about moral arguments. The storm does not ask who is innocent. The predator does not debate ethics. Only humans invent moral frameworks. Because we are social creatures. Morality is glue. But glue is not the structure. Interest is the structure. Remove interest, and morality collapses. Now here is the final truth most cannot handle. Even this philosophy serves an interest. Yes, the interest of clarity, the interest of strength, the interest of freedom from illusion. You must ask yourself, do you want comfort or do you want power? Comfort requires belief in good and evil. Power requires understanding interest. The world will continue preaching morality, and you can nod along, smile, appear virtuous, play the role, but inside, understand the game. Because once you see that there is no absolute good or evil, only competing interests, you stop being manipulated by emotional narratives. You start asking better questions. Who benefits? Who loses? What is the hidden motive? What is the long-term consequence? This is how you rise above the herd, not by rejecting morality publicly, but by understanding it privately. The sheep need good and evil. The strategist sees incentives. And remember this, calling someone evil is often just a confession that their interests threaten yours. There is no good. There is no evil. There is only desire, colliding with desire. And the one who understands this writes the rules. You still resist. You say, if there is no good or evil, then everything is meaningless. No, it becomes sharper. Meaning does not disappear. It becomes self-defined. You were trained to outsource your conscience to parents, to religion, to society, to law, to culture, to fear. But remove all of that. Stand alone. If no one is watching you, if there is no heaven, if there is no hell, if history forgets you, what remains? Your interest. That is your true compass. A righteous man sacrifices himself for justice. Why? Because justice aligns with his internal reward system. Because dying for belief preserves his identity. Because reputation after death matters to him. Even martyrdom has profit. The currency is not always money. Sometimes it is pride. Sometimes it is legacy. Sometimes it is emotional satisfaction. But there is always an exchange. Nothing is free. Even kindness demands emotional return. Even cruelty seeks advantage. You want to believe in pure goodness because it makes the world less frightening. But look carefully. The so-called good people resent others quietly, expect appreciation, desire recognition, feel bitterness when unacknowledged. That is not purity. That is unacknowledged interest. The dangerous ones, they acknowledge it. They accept I act because it benefits me. And once you accept that, guilt loses control over you. Let me tell you something brutal. You are not upset when evil happens. You are upset when it happens to you. When tragedy strikes a stranger, you scroll past it. When it strikes your life, suddenly the universe is unfair. Is the universe evil? Or are your interests violated? Your morality? is proximity-based. Your outrage is self-centered. You care when your circle is touched. That is instinct, not virtue. Look at power. A ruler enforces strict laws. Citizens call him cruel. Crime decreases. Stability increases. Economy grows. Was he evil or was he effective? A leader shows mercy. Crime rises. Chaos spreads. Weakness invites invasion. Was he good or was he naive? History judges based on outcomes, not intentions. Intentions are invisible. Results are measurable. Interest always aligns with results. Fang Yuan once embodied a principle that most fear. If something blocks your path, remove it. Not because it is evil, not because you hate it, but because it interferes with your objective. Emotion clouds strategy. Attachment weakens resolve. The world rewards those who calculate, not those who hesitate. You hesitate because you fear being bad, but bad is a label given by those whose interests you threaten. Understand this. The moment you rise, someone will call you selfish. The moment you refuse exploitation, someone will call you cold. The moment you prioritize yourself, someone will call you immoral. Why? Because your growth disrupts their benefit. Their accusation is defense, not truth. Now let's go deeper. Even love is interest disguised as poetry. You love those who make you feel seen. You love those who validate you. You love those who provide security, excitement, or meaning. If someone removes all benefit from your life, your love erodes. Time reveals this truth brutally. You do not love unconditionally. You love conditionally. But the conditions are complex, and that complexity deceives you. So what is the conclusion? Should you become ruthless? Should you discard empathy? No, that is shallow understanding. Empathy is useful. Trust is useful. Reputation is useful. Cooperation is useful. Morality is useful. But useful does not mean sacred. Use tools. Do not worship them. The weak worship morality. The intelligent analyze incentives. The powerful shape them. Here is the highest level of understanding. There is no good. There is no evil. But there are consequences, and consequences are real. If harming someone creates long-term instability for you, it is foolish. If helping someone creates long-term leverage, it is wise. This is not about cruelty. It is about clarity. The universe does not punish evil. It enforces cause and effect. And cause and effect do not care about your moral vocabulary. Ask yourself honestly, are you living according to your true interests? Or are you living according to moral approval? Are you suppressing ambition to appear good? Are you accepting disrespect to seem kind? Are you shrinking to avoid being labeled selfish? If yes, then morality is your cage, and the cage is locked from the inside. The strongest individuals understand 3 layers. Layer 1, public morality. Layer 2, private incentives. Layer 3, cold reality. Most people never pass layer 1. They argue endlessly about good and evil. They fight over labels. They cancel. They condemn. They defend, but they never ask. What does each side gain? Follow the benefit. You will always find the truth there. When you finally understand that existence is interest colliding with interest, you stop wasting energy on outrage. You focus on positioning. You focus on leverage. You focus on growth. You stop asking, is this fair? You start asking, is this effective? Fairness is an emotional demand. Effectiveness is a strategic question, and strategy decides survival. Here is the final blade of truth. The world is not divided between good people and evil people. It is divided between those who understand the game and those who are played. If you cling to moral illusions, you will be used by those who don't. If you understand incentives, you will navigate power without being consumed by it. Not because you are evil, but because you are aware. In the end, calling something evil is easy. Understanding why it happened requires intelligence. Morality comforts the mind. Interest reveals the structure. Choose comfort or choose clarity, but do not pretend they are the same. You have now understood that good and evil are labels. You have seen that morality bends. You have realized that interest drives action. But you are still incomplete because you are still reacting. True self-interest is not reaction. It is authorship. Most people pursue small interests: money, status, approval, security, pleasure. They fight for crumbs and call it ambition. That is not power. That is survival instinct. Wearing a crown. The highest form of self-interest is not chasing benefit. It is defining reality around your objective. The wolf hunts because it is hungry. The king conquers because he desires territory. But the true strategist, he reshapes the board itself. You are still afraid that if you abandon morality, you will become a monster. But what is a monster? A being that disregards the interests of others. And what is society? A system designed to suppress extreme individual interest for collective stability. Society fears individuals who operate beyond moral control because such individuals cannot be predicted. They cannot be guilted. They cannot be emotionally manipulated. They cannot be shamed. And shame is the leash of the masses. Break shame and you break control. But listen carefully. The ultimate self-interest is not chaotic selfishness. It is long-term dominance of outcome. Short-term greed is weakness. Emotional revenge is weakness. Impulsive cruelty is weakness. Attachment is weakness. True self-interest is cold patience. It calculates decades ahead. It sacrifices temporary pleasure for irreversible advantage. It endures insult for future leverage. It loses small battles to win the war of positioning. This is where most fail. They mistake ego for strength, but ego is reactive. Self-interest at its peak is silent. Imagine this. You are insulted publicly. The crowd watches. Your pride burns. Morality whispers. Defend your honor. Emotion screams. Destroy him. But interest asks, what gains me more? Sometimes silence builds more power than retaliation. Sometimes tolerance creates debt. Sometimes humiliation is bait. If you act emotionally, you reveal your weakness. If you act strategically, you reveal nothing. Mystery is power. Predictability is vulnerability. The masses need good and evil to orient themselves. Without it, they feel lost. But you, if you have come this far, must transcend that need. You do not need to see yourself as good. You do not need to see others as evil. You see vectors, forces, movements of desire intersecting. You stop judging. You start calculating. There is a higher truth most cannot accept. Even identity is an interest. You say, this is who I am. No, that is who benefits you to be. The quiet one, the kind one, the ruthless one, the loyal one. All roles, all masks, all chosen because they produce outcomes. If tomorrow a different mask yields greater advantage, would you dare to change it? Or are you enslaved by consistency? The weak cling to identity. The strong redesign themselves. Again and again and again, until the world cannot define them. Now we reach the final point. If everything is interest, then what is the ultimate interest? Survival? Too basic. Power? Too temporary. Legacy? Too dependent on memory. The ultimate interest is self-sovereignty. To act without internal contradiction. To decide without moral paralysis. To move without needing validation. To pursue your objective without being enslaved by guilt. When you reach this state, you are no longer reacting to the moral system. You are using it. You smile when needed. You appear righteous when useful. You appear harmless when strategic. You appear ruthless when necessary. But internally, you are free. And freedom is the most dangerous state a human can reach. Let me end this with something colder. The world will never reward you for being good. It will reward you for being useful. If you are useful to power, you are protected. If you threaten power, you are labeled evil. That is all. Good and evil are public relations. Interest is infrastructure. Remember that. When someone calls you selfish, ask what you stopped providing them. When someone calls you immoral, ask whose expectations you broke. When someone calls you evil, ask whose comfort you disturbed. Their judgment is rarely about truth. It is about loss. In the end, there are not good people and evil people. There are only those strong enough to pursue their interests consciously, and those controlled by narratives they never question. Choose your position carefully, because once you see the structure, you cannot unsee it. And once you stop believing in good and evil, you stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for justice. You stop waiting for rescue. You become responsible for everything. That is the final form of self-interest. Not cruelty, not chaos, not destruction. Responsibility without illusion. And that is a path few dare to walk. This is the end. No heroes, no villains, only will. Only consequence. Only those who understand the game and those who don't. Now decide. Will you cling to moral comfort, or will you stand alone and write your own rules?